Hi everyone, and thank you so much for watching these examples and learning pretty much on your own. We are now in the lesson 8-2, which is solving systems by substitution, and this is example 1. Now, I don't like this module that much because it doesn't have good examples, but I'm trying to explain it to you. And then, yes, we're doing other activities too, but I want to make sure that I expose you to this. So it says example 1, solve linear system by substitution. So this is the ugliest strategy, but I thought to teach it. Once again, you will see it again in 9th grade, 10th grade, and maybe even 11th grade. So when I see this example, negative 3x plus y equals 1 and 4x plus y equals 8, the thing that pops out at me is these y's. So substitution is not the best strategy. It's actually elimination. So I'm going to review elimination with you. So to eliminate the y's, I'm going to subtract them, both of the system, both of the equations. So I'm going to put a long line right there, and I should put subtraction right there, but it's okay. Know that I'm subtracting, okay? So right here, negative 3x minus 4x. Negative 3x minus 4x. Once we change it to addition of the opposite, it's like negative 4x right here. So then my answer is going to be negative 7x. Now, when I subtract positive y minus positive y, that becomes a 0, so I don't need to write it. So then I go, okay, 1 minus 8, that's negative 7. And now I see, okay, my x, I need to leave the x alone. This is being multiplied by negative 7, so I got to divide by negative 7. Whatever I do to one side, I got to do to the other side. And remember the division. I put a little fraction bar, kind of, underline it. So I'm dividing both sides by negative 7. Here, negative 7 divided by negative 7 is 1. 1 times x is x. And then equals, oops, only 1 equals. Here, negative 7 divided by negative 7 is positive 1. Now I got to get the y. So when I look at both of these equations, which one looks maybe a little bit easier? I don't know. Both of them are the same, but some people hate the negative. So I'm going to go ahead and stay with the bottom one. So I write down the bottom one. The bottom one is 6x plus y is equal to 8. And I already know that my value for the x is 1, so I'm going to substitute that 1. 4 times 1 plus y equals 8. Okay, so now this is multiplication, right? 4 times 1 is 4, and then plus y is equal to 8. And what I want to do is I want to get the y alone. The y is being added to 4, so the inverse of adding 4 is minus 4. Since 4 is positive, you're subtracting 4 to both sides. Whatever I do to one side, I got to do to the other side. Remember, I'm subtracting, so I put a long line. Oops, I put a long line right here to say I am subtracting. So 4 minus 4 is 0, so the only thing that's going to stay on that side is the y. And then on this side, 8 minus 4 is 4. So now I have my solution. The solution is 1 and 4. I can put in the solution is 1 and 4. But this is elimination, and they want us to do it by substitution. So the substitution is ugly. I will go a little bit slow, okay? So first, substitution, in order to substitute, is the first step is you solve one of the equations for one of the variables. So let's just look at the first one. The first one is negative 3x plus y equals 1. Once again, the thing that stands out at me is that y is almost by itself. So what I want to do is I want to leave that y by itself. So I'm going to rewrite it right here. Negative 3x plus y equals 1. So let me write this down so that way you know that what the first step is. The first step is to solve one of the equations for one of its variables. Okay, technically, if this was the strategy that I would be using, one variable would already be alone. Okay, so here I want to leave the y alone. So if I want to leave the y alone, it's being added to negative 3x. So the inverse of that is I add 3x to both sides. Whatever I do to one side, I got to do to the other side, 3x. And then, so put a long line because I'm adding. So here, negative 3x and positive 3x, that becomes a 0. So the only thing that's left on that side is the y. And then on the other side, I'm going to have 1 plus 3x. And I'll write it like that. 1 plus 3x. Okay? So now that I have that done, the second step is substitute the expression from one of those variables into the other equation. So step number 2 is substitute the expression from step 1 into the other equation and solve for the other variable. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is and number 3, I'm not ready yet. So right here, I'm going to, instead of the y, I'm going to substitute this expression into the other equation. So now I'm going to have, let me see, the other equation was 4x plus y equals 8. So now what I'm going to do is instead of this y, I'm going to replace it and I'm going to put this expression 1 plus 3x. So I keep the 4x plus, and then every time you substitute, I use parentheses. So 1 plus 3x, and that's equal to, I got rid of the y, I replaced it by 1 plus 3x, bring down the equal sign, and then put the 8. And now, the thing that stands out is the parentheses, but it's only a plus, so I'm just adding these, so nothing's going to change. So I could just put 3x plus 1 plus 3x, I'm sorry, I said 3x over here, this was 4x, equals 8. Okay, so now I got to solve this equation. So one of the things that stands out to me is that plus 3x and positive 4x. So 4x plus 3x, that's 7x. So right here, I'm going to have 7x. I didn't do anything with the plus 1. So plus 1 equals 8. And now I want to get the x alone. So this is, the x is being multiplied by 2 and then added by 1. The inverse of adding by 1 is subtracting 1. Whatever I do to one side, I got to do to the other side. And since I'm subtracting, remember I put a long line. So I didn't do anything with the 7x. So I bring down the 7x. The positive 1 minus 1, that's 0. And then 8 minus 1, that's 7. Oops, forgot the equal sign, equals 7. And so now the x is being multiplied by 7. The inverse of multiplication is division. So I got to divide by 7. Whatever I do to one side, got to do to the other side. Division. Don't forget the little line. I'm dividing both sides by 7. So now here, 7 divided by 7 is 1. 1 times x is x. On the other side, the same thing. 7 divided by 7 is 1. So now I got my x is 1. Okay, I finally solved for x. Okay, so now the third step, oops. The third step is substitute the value from step 2 into either original equation and solve for the other variable. Okay, so right here I know that x is 1, so I can actually just substitute it right here. So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to substitute that value of x. So right here I have y is equal to 1 plus 3x. So I'm going to put 1 plus 3, and now the x was just 1, so I put in 1 right there. And so now 3 times 1, remember we have to do the order of operations, multiplication first, so 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, so that means that's 4. So now we know the x is 1 and the y is 4. The solution is 1, 4. Thank you so much for your patience. This is the ugliest ones, but we're done. Yay! We're almost, this is the last strategy.